All right, with our work today, we're going to focus on the circumference of a circle. Quite frankly, we've got a formula. We want to be able to calculate the circumference, and we can use that for problems like figuring out the amount of rope that you would need to tie a bundle of sticks. Several skills that you're going to need. You're going to have to be able to multiply. You have to be able to convert back and forth between fractions and decimals, and convert between mixed numbers, improper fractions. And also, we expect that you already know that the number pi is about 3.14. Okay. Earlier, we discussed that perimeter was the length around the outside of a shape. When that shape is a circle, we call perimeter circumference. That's it. All we're looking at is the perimeter of a circle. And there are a boatload of facts that we would already know. The circumference of a circle can be calculated by taking 2 times pi times radius, which is the same as, say, taking just pi times the diameter. We'll use either one of these things. Additionally, depending on if your problem is a decimal problem or a fraction problem, there are 2 approximations for pi which we use. Most students are familiar with 3.14, but a lot of times they forget that the fraction 22/7 is really, really close to pi also. And so we simply get started. Find the circumference. Recognizing that this problem gives us the radius, we'll use circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. Thus, our circumference is 2 times our approximation for pi multiplied by that radius of 2.4. And we'll simply multiply it out, and then we're done. We've got our answer. In this instance, pull up just the calculator and say 2 times 3.14 times radius. Done. 15.072. Rounding that answer to the nearest tenth, as the directions tell us to, 15.07 would round to 15.1. And since perimeter is length, since circumference is length, our label is inches. Done. Consider here. This is a problem where we are given the diameter. And so it makes more sense for us to use our formula. Circumference is pi multiplied by diameter. Also, since the diameter is given to us as a fraction, we should use the fraction form for our pi approximation. Multiply straight across the numerators. 22 times 3 is 66. Straight across the denominators, 7 times 4 is 28. And we have our answer. We still need to simplify it. We'll need to convert it into a mixed number. And so this is a problem that when I look at it, I can see that we can divide out by 2, which would give us 33/14. And if we take 33 divided by 14, well, that goes in twice with a remainder of 5. Thus, our answer is 2, a remainder of 5, denominator of 14, and our label is feet. 2 5/14 of a foot. Done. Obviously, most students prefer the decimal problems because they're like, oh, cool, I can just plug it into my calculator and get the answer. All right, fine, but that doesn't mean that you get to completely ignore fractions. They are important. You still have to know how to work with them. What about here? Circumference of this soccer ball. Recognizing that this length of 22 is a diameter, it goes all the way across, we would know that circumference is pi times diameter.
And so we've got 22.3 multiplied by pi. And we'll just put it directly into our calculator then. 22.3 times pi. We get an approximation 70.02. Rounding to the nearest tenth. Oh, it glitched out on me. Our circumference is 70.0 centimeters.
Done.
What about here? What's the circumference
For a quarter.
All right, of course we'd have to recognize that this piece is telling us the radius. And so circumference is 2 times pi times radius. Therefore, we have 2 times 1 1/4 times the radius. I put that in the wrong spot. Pi would use the approximation 22/7. And we also noted that when we multiply and add, we can convert that to an improper fraction, 5/4. So multiplying straight across the numerators, 2 times 22 times 5, that's 220. 1 times 7 times 4 gives you 28. And if we divide those out by 4, that would give us 54/7. And 54 divided by 7, remember that we discussed that we could do this with a calculator, conversions anyway. 54 divided by 7 gives us a whole number of 7 because it's 7 point. Subtract off whatever whole number you got to get just the decimal. Since our denominator was 7, we can multiply by 7 and get the remainder. Taking advantage of our calculator, we know that this is 7 and 5, come on, yellow, sevenths of a centimeter. And we're done.
We have the circumference for a quarter. Lastly, we've got sticks in a bonfire. Now, of course, if you're going to be carrying sticks, it's helpful if they actually hold together. And so you're going to create like a pile so that you can tie together.
The widest part of the wood is a circle that's 28 inches across. Please recognize 28 inches across is telling us that's the diameter. And so we can take this circle, the circumference of a circle is pi times diameter. So our circumference is 3.14 multiplied by 28. And going back to our calculator to speed it up, 3.14 times 28, 87.92. Essentially then, that's telling us it's 88 inches in circumference. You've got a length of rope that's 90 inches long. Do you have enough rope? Barely. Just barely. So, is it wide enough? Yes. And we know that's because 90 is bigger than 88.
That can be our explanation. We have our work showing that the circumference is 88 and 90 is bigger than 88, so we've got enough rope.
So there we are, we're done.
Whether you're working with a word problem or an image,
Each one of these problems
that we're focusing on
is just the circumference of a circle. The circumference of a circle can be based on having pi represented in a fraction form. It can be represented by using pi in its decimal form or a decimal approximation. Either way, we're focusing on our two circumference circles, 2 times pi times radius, or pi times diameter, and we're simply making the alterations so that we can actually calculate what the circumference is and solve word problems about circumference.